This is part two. Um, and basically, part one, um, in part one, I discussed being led to Second Peter 1, verse 12, where it says, "Wherefore I will not be negligent to put you always in remembrance of these things, though ye know them, and be established in the present truth." So then the question was, what are these things that I need to remember, right? What are these things that I need to remember? And that's the wizard, being a wizard in my phone remotely, um, because they know once they send in a message, the volume goes down or something like that. So anyway, what would we need to be in remembrance of? Remember, I sought the Lord and I asked God what um, I should have done, or what Christopher Delgado and I should have done once we saw Simona and her ways of moving around him. And I was talking to him, right? And the talking would be considered dating, right? Um, and God led me to, if I would just give a little summary of part one, I was led to 1 Peter 4, verse 14, which lets me know that no matter what I would have done, she was going to always reproach me, right? She had the confidence, the fierceness, the boldness to do that, even in, in the Christmas fellowship at the house of the Lord. Um, she would want to embarrass me, reproach me, insult me, and she would still pursue Chris no matter what I would have done. And I gave an example in part one of a certain thing that I did to help her know, hey, I'm talking to this person, and it was in the house of the Lord, and um, that was in the house of the Lord that I did that after a service, and Chris nodded his head yes. So it's like he was looking for something to help him, right? I mean, he's a young man, considering um, his looks, which like that wasn't really why I was attracted to him, but considering the mindset of people in the Western world, especially in the USA, prior to me, he must have had problems, or a lot of girls flocking to him. So maybe by the time I'm meeting him, he's kind of exhausted, right? Like, whatever. Um, but I'm his God-given spouse, and when I placed my hands over his, um, and it was done in front of Simona. Simona was watching me or watching us, and he nodded his head yes. So he was aware why I did it, and that she had an interest in him. So, um, so I, did that as a young person in her early, in as a young person in my be patient with me with this wizard, in my early 30s, and you would think that she would get the message, but she had a personality back then where she was very fierce, pursuing whatever lusts, even if it mean trampling on the pearls and not caring about my soul, doing certain things. And I discussed that in part one. And also discuss why I was led to 1 Peter 4, verse 14, after she disrespected me at a Christmas fellowship. Um, so basically, no matter what I would have done, she would have still have this confidence. I don't know if it's because of the wizard's devices or them listening and they think, hey, I got this. and they're very confident whatever Satan deceives people to believe, that they can just do whatever it is, and God's just gonna just give up and give up on me, and basically they get whatever they want. So another thing I saw, while I think it was sometime after part one, and it was concerning Simona. I believe it was on the topic of, either her staying in the house of the Lord or whatever was concerning her. I saw the word devour. So basically, regardless of what I would have done, the wizardry and sorcery and the wizard's devices and all these tactics, of shame and embarrassment and all that kind of stuff, they feel very confident to basically steal from people who are harmless and who are peaceful or who are godly in the USA, right? So, with that in mind, so God led me to that, and then I saw Second Peter 1 verse 12, and then I wanted to know what should I remember, and then if you consider Second Peter 1 verse 3, I read it, I believe in part 1 to I think to about verse 10, from 3 to 10. And basically there's a little subtitle here, or a little title here. It's just a little subtitle. And it's the growth of true knowledge. The growth of true knowledge. And so the growth of true knowledge, basically to be led to that, it meant that we would have needed the knowledge of God. And so before God, during this time, even while Simona was around, Christopher Delgado and I, we were a marital pair before God. God joined us together. But under the world's mindset of how things should be done, and more specifically, I know I was under this mindset where if I don't have a marriage certificate from the city courts, or if I don't if we didn't do a wedding ceremony or exchange rings or something like that, then marriage didn't begin. And within the past couple of years, God basically brought down that imagination, and that ideology that's out in the world, and taught me that these things like a wedding ceremony, exchange of rings, or a marriage certificate, that's just proof of love. That's what God taught me. But when being in Genesis 2:22 to 24 and looking into it, and I believe the Spirit of God would do that, or prompt me to do that. God, when He does things, He joins people together. He joined Adam and Eve. He brought Eve to Adam, and marriage began, right? And He said, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, right? Pardon me. And He received her. And so when I went to Pastor Francis, and let her know, and this was after like being in Orlando for about 6 weeks, I would say. It was like mid-September, and to the it's either like the whole month of October, um, or the last Sunday in October. So I would say about 6 weeks, right? Um, it's either the last Sunday in October or the first Sunday in November. That's when I went to her, and I said I wanted to talk to this individual, but I didn't want any drama. And she brought me to him, and he received me. We exchanged numbers, and then he asked me out, asked, if I would want to go to Disney World with him, and then um, I believe he spoke to my uncle and his wife, who I was staying with at the time. And so we all went and we saw the fireworks, which was really lovely. It was a nice evening or trip during those hours of the night. Anyway, um, staying on the story, staying on the purpose of this video. So basically, uh, it took some time before I actually spoke to him, right? And so we received one another, and the thing about it is that this young lady came on the scene, and you would think that I mean, she must have known that we were talking, because many members did know. But then I did the hand over hand thing, and um basically I did the hand over my hands over his hands, and he nodded yes. And basically, that she should get the message. But she had a personality at that time where it was fierce and bold and confident, and a bit, I guess, aggressive. And so she would still pursue Chris. And what I want to say is she would still aggressively go after Christopher Delgado, and she would, in some way, shape, or form, if it wasn't at the Christmas fellowship, she would find a way to disrespect me or embarrass me or reproach me. Pretty much insult me in some way, shape, or form. Because with that tactic, like if a man, certain men, right? If they see their wife, and then people, they'll do strange things, like, let's say they'll, for example, to break a man from loving his God-given spouse, or from having desires towards his spouse, they would do things like, say, if somebody would treat her like a child, or strip her of her clothes, um, the like, this is really far out there, but they would rape the wife in front of the husband. All these things to break a man, or to turn him from receiving his spouse, right? And I've learned the wizards are behind that, because one of the things that they said was something like Christopher has AIDS or herpes. And so I brought it to the Lord, and God led me to Romans 15, verse 7. And so if you read it, it basically says, receive ye one another. So they do it so that the husband would not receive the wife, right? So these females will move a certain way, and some of them that know about the wizards, wizardry, witchcraft tactics, and bullying tactics, which is witchcraft in some way, shape, or form, they would do these things, right? I'm not thinking she's coming in to do that. And why I want this video to be towards the young people in the house of the Lord, because you may be in the house of the Lord. Your mind is like you're like a sheep. You're pure. You're not thinking the depths of the evil, the depths of Satan or the evil that these people would do. But and you may be on the praise and worship team or on the choir, or you may be serving God in some way, shape, or form, and you have no clue that somebody is sitting in the audience, and you're thinking, hey, they just want to worship God and fellowship and love God, and they're thinking, especially on the wizardry, or on the Satan, to basically steal what you have, reproach you. They want probably men to run a train on you. They want you to be defiled or deflowered so that they can reproach you and dishonor your head. Basically, have your head going back and forth about your self-esteem, self-worth, or who you are, or messing with your mental health, dishonoring it, taking the peace of God from it. These are the type of things that they think when they come into the house of the Lord. Because remember, they're not born again, right? To the pure, all things are pure. To the defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. So some of them may probably want to be saved, but they still have these feelings and thoughts within, if push come to shove, right? Or something like that. And so you have to be aware of that. Like, some people are really in the house of the Lord thinking thoughts of, especially under the wizard, thoughts of jealousy and lusted to envy when they don't need to, right? They don't need to be jealous. You just need to pray. You don't need to be envious. You just need to bring your issues to God. God will comfort you, heal you, and you just need to pray. But they don't do these things, and many of them don't know these things, so they're still moving, in jealousy and envy and in lust and in adultery, and that's what comes into the house of the Lord. It's shocking, it's sad, but it's true. And so, how to look at that, or how to look at these people, basically, they're in need of salvation. I'm not saying you should, like, make them feel, um, like an outcast, right? But also, if God reveals certain things, because when you're young, you may not have all the knowledge, but something may tell you, well, it's not, and I'm not talking about the wizards that make you feel a feel. The Spirit of God will help you to know something's not right, right? So, and so it's just like a child, they may experience a hurt, and they're crying. They don't know what it is. They know it's not right, but they don't quite know what it really was about or what it's all about, right? And so in the house of the Lord, you may be like that, right? And so, basically, what you would need a good pastor who's able to discern and, use his rod and its staff, and basically, look into things and see, well, hey, this person's really not here for for the glory of God, or to grow the kingdom of God, or for his, for selfless loving purposes of God's kingdom, right? And so they would need to address them and ask them to leave. But others may just say, hey, stay away from that one, or sit over here, or whatever. And I'm saying this because I've seen certain pastors and what they would do. But if you have some pastors that may lack knowledge on what to do, you will fall prey, you may fall in the house of the Lord, right? Um, so one of the things that I also one of the reasons why I think this video is important is because when you're young and if you grew up in a single parent household or if you grew up in a divorced household, you lack knowledge. You lack knowledge about marriage.